But what is correct in this statement is the reminder of European hypocrisy. The European maneuver effectively was to pay for its own guilt with another people's land. So when the Israeli government spokesman, Ra'nan Gissin, said in response, just to remind Mr. Ahmadinejad, we've been here long before his ancestors were here. Therefore, we have a birthright to be here in the land of our forefathers and to live here. He evoked a historical right which, when applied universally, would lead to universal slaughter. That is to say, can one imagine a world in which ethnic groups would be all the time reminding their neighbors that we've been here before you, even if this means 1,000 or more years ago, and use this fact to justify their effort to seize the neighbor's land? The big mystery apropos of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is, I think, why does it persist for so long when everybody knows the only viable solution? The withdrawal of the Israelis from the West Bank and Gaza, the establishment of a Palestinian state, as well as some kind of compromise concerning Jerusalem. Whenever the agreement seems at hand, it inexplicably withdraws. How often did it happen that when peace seemed just a matter of finding a proper formulation for some minor statement, everything suddenly collapsed, displaying the frailty of the negotiated compromise? There is effectively something of a neurotic symptom in the Middle East conflict. Everyone sees the way to get rid of the obstacle, and yet no one wants to remove it, as if there is some kind of pathological libidinal profit gained by persisting in the deadlock. This is why the Middle East crisis is such a sensitive point for the pragmatic politics which aims at resolving problems piece by piece in a realistic mode. Here, I claim, in the Middle East, the true utopia is precisely that such a realistic approach will work. The only realistic solution is here the big one, to solve the problem at its roots. Here, the old motto from the walls of Paris of '68 applies. Soyons réalistes, demandons l'impossible. Only a radical gesture that has to appear impossible within the given coordinates will realistically do the job. One is really tempted to speak here of a symptomal knot, and as the story of the Gordian knot tells us, the only way to resolve such a deadlock is not to unravel the knot, but to cut it. But how? Alain Badiou, since he is not here, I will now do a little bit of critique of him, because I'm a warm human person and don't like to hurt people criticizing them in face. As a warm person, I will speak bad behind the back about persons. Here is it, the quote. The founding of a Zionist state, from Badiou, was a mixed, thoroughly complex reality. On the one side, it is an event which is part of a larger event, the rise of great revolutionary communist socialist projects. The idea to found an entirely new society. On the other side, it is a counter-event, which is part of a larger counter-event, colonialism, the brutal conquest by the people who came from Europe of the new land where other peoples live. This creation is an extraordinary mixture, the creation of the State of Israel, of revolution and reaction, of emancipation and oppression. The Zionist state should become what it had in it of being just and new. It has to become the least racial, the least religious, and the least nationalist of states, the most universal of them all. End of quote. Now, while there, of course, is a truth in this insight, the problem remains. Can one really untie the knot in this direct way and simply separate the two aspects, in the sense of the possibility of the first one, the Zionist state, without the second one? To me, frankly, it sounds a little bit too much like the legendary if answer of, I forgot his name, sorry, I think it's from the time of Prohibition, of an American politician to the question, do you support the prohibition of alcohol, of wine or not? His answer was, if by wine you mean the terrible drink which ruined thousands of families, making husbands a wreck who were beating their wives and neglecting their children, then I'm fully for the prohibition. But if you mean by wine the noble drink with a wonderful taste, which makes every meal such a pleasure, then I'm against the prohibition. But you wish a little bit too much of this, I mean. So what is needed is perhaps more, not only drawing the line of distinction between the good and the bad side, but an authentic act of changing the very coordinates of the situation. Like when Yitzhak Rabin decided, I still remember what a shock it was, after decades of that rhetoric, we don't deal with Palestinian PLO terrorists, simply let's cut it, let's deal with it, and so on, and so on. Namely, recall the story about the Caucasus chalk circle, on which Brecht based one of his late plays. In the ancient times, somewhere in Caucasus, a biological mother and a stepmother appealed to the judge to decide who should get the child. The judge drew a chalk, with a circle in sand, okay, on stone probably, it's a little bit difficult to do, placed the baby in the middle and told the two women that the one who will be first to pull the child out of the circle will get it. When the stepmother saw that the child was, of course, screaming, getting hurt by being drawn in opposite direction, she let him go out of compassion. And of course, the judge gave the child to her, claiming that she displayed true maternal love. I would like to imagine along these lines a Jerusalem chalk circle. The one who truly loves Jerusalem would rather let it go than see it torn apart by tensions. And the ultimate irony, if you know a little bit of Old Testament, is that this Brecht story is really a variation of that King Solomon judgment. It's as if today the bad mother who says cut it in two is predominant. That is to say, what is happening now in and around the state of Israel. I think that the tragic thing is the recasting of the conflict in the terms of the war between Israel and the entire Arab community. This recasting is, I think, fits both sides. On the one hand, it's part of probably the new Israeli strategy. If the conflict is perceived as focused on Israel's relation with Palestinians, we get the image of a strong state subduing an inferior, I mean, in the sense of numbers, smaller colonized population. If, however, the conflict is recast as the conflict between the state of Israel and all other Arab states, then we get a much more heroic image of a small Israel as a victim encircled by the Arab Sea, 6 million against hundreds of millions. While it